We are back, B.
Yeah.
Are you on your phone, really?
No,
That's
not
what we
at
doing,
all.
Beyonce?
No, I
That's
paid
what we
close
doing,
attention
Beyonce?
to Ross Mack, who is in the building. Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
Ross Mack. If you do not know, we have seen him on Forbes.
Yeah.
We've seen him on Yahoo Finance. We've seen him on Netflix.
Man.
You're everywhere, bro.
Well, man, thank you guys so much for having me. And now I'm here. This
Yes!
is the most important place I'm at right now.
Yes.
Talk about, let's go from the beginning. How did you first get started in finance, and tell the people what you do?
Yeah, so I first got started in finance when I was third grade, selling candy on the school bus, right?
Wow.
I had to learn profit margins. You know, I went over there, what's that, 71st and State to that big
Yep.
candy, so it's still there.
It's
by the
still
way.
there, I know.
It's still
Man,
there.
now later's fire.
Oh my. And I was selling candy on the school bus. Then I bought it in school, and then some teacher was hating. She was asking, is this part of a what was it, a fundraiser? I'm like, no, but this is the United Negro Fund. So, so ever since then, I was always, kind of more business oriented. I ended up, going to the Wharton School of Business, what at the time was the #1 business school in the world. It probably still is. And then from there, my homie here, he just graduated from U Chicago, Booth. So he's shaking his head now. He capping them. But from there, I went and I worked on Wall Street. So I worked in New York at Morgan Stanley. Wow. And the biggest thing that I learned was while I was sitting there, people, didn't look like us. I was the first black person on the desk at that time, and that was 2012. So that's kind of alarming, right? I was selling, doing sales and trading, doing high yield bonds, which is like Toys R Us, like companies that was near going bankrupt when they borrow money. So it's like everybody got to loan it in a different way, and that's through bonds. And then I came back home to Chicago where I was working at a hedge fund. But when I came back home, the biggest thing I realized is people that grew up with me that, from all the different areas, one of the things I realized was the greatest teacher wasn't that I went to a better school, it was just exposure. I was exposed to different things and different conversations that I picked up on. Because everything that I know today, I didn't learn it in a book. I didn't learn it at school. I learned it by being on the right desk and around the right people at the right time. And so what I want to do, the second part of your question is, what do you do? What I wanted to do was find a better way to bring Wall Street to Main Street. So I started doing something back when there was no TikTok, when it was just IG. Reels didn't exist. It was just literally IGTV. No, there was no IGTV. At most, you could put 59 seconds for a video. Yep. Excuse me. And so at the time, I was like, man, let me just have, a Tyler Perry approach to doing something that I watch on CNBC every day with this guy named Jim Cramer. So I'm like, man, the people that call into his show, white woman from the suburbs or an older white male asking, hey, Jim, what do you think about my portfolio type? Right. I'm like, nah, let me put some flair to it. So I say, let me make you laugh. So my calls was all inner city. You know what I mean? A young lady, she might, hey man, my baby daddy just got locked up and he left me with a little change. I'm trying to flip it for him like, Keisha Kiora did for Gucci. I'm like, oh, what should I do? So I'm telling her how to invest, right? I got a guy that's might work at a strip club that's a bouncer, and he like, man, I don't got no retirement. What should I start doing? So I'm telling them about Roth IRAs. And so at the end of the day, what I did was make you laugh to then give you a minute, well, less than a minute because I do the call, but 45 seconds or so of hard-hitting, facts that's going to make you say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And so what I do today is I have a production company that literally specializes in making financial literacy more digestible and make it, we just trying to expose the community. So it's called Maconomics, right? Like you say, I got a show on Revolt TV. I had the Netflix. I do things with BET. I'm live from the New York Stock Exchange. I do things with Complex. And the goal is really just to normalize the conversation about money, because what I genuinely feel as though is the secrets to attaining wealth isn't hard, but it's just historically been kept from us, right? Like as a society, right, whether you black, white, or purple, right, this is a capitalist society, and therefore maybe that's why they purposely don't teach us this in high school and college, but they purposely will say, oh, you 18, let me go and send you, $200,000 worth of credit cards, and you don't know nothing about it, right? Like we should know about credit. We should know how to buy our first home. We should know the impact of like, oh, well, okay, I'll take out student loans. I don't know what this means.
We didn't learn none of that in school.
But we still paying it for the rest of our life, and we don't know. So the goal is, one, teaching people how to, become owners and not just consumers, because that's the name of the game, right? You can't save your way to wealth. You have to invest.
Yeah. I'm so intrigued because you're a pretty young guy and, black guy. When I look at you, I see, wait, what? You're in finances? What? But I just think that a lot of people, the misconception is saving money. It's corny. We need to live for the moment. I got a few friends that stay in the mall, and we need to learn the importance of financing and saving for our futures and stuff. There are black people who were millionaires and billionaires back in the day and things like that, but why do you think it is that we don't see that kind of stuff? We hear of, name escapes me right now. Wow, it shouldn't. Hair products, first millionaire woman, self-made. Can't think of the name right now, but I will think of it in a moment. Madam C.J. Walker, thank you. So it did exist, and there were millionaires back in the 1920s and things like that. But how come we're not taught those things? What do you think that's from?
One, I love that. When you talk about the 20s, then you got to start thinking about, Greenwood and,
exactly.
The Tulsa, Oklahoma bombings and stuff. As a result, right, historically, wealth has been kept from us. And even when we were getting the money, right, if you look at the Freeman's Bank, where black people was putting their money in there and then ran by white people, and you look up and they made bad investments and just lost all the people money. And at the end of the day, right, we've always had a mistrust for not being able to see our money, right? Oh, I don't trust banks. I need to be able to see my money, right? And as a result, that has kept us from effectively competing, right, in this game of attaining wealth, right? I want to say black people own less than 2% of the stock market, and that is, we make up 14% of the population. So at the end of the day, right, I think there's been a lot of things that have kept us from getting wealth, right? And that whether it's from, Jim Crow to redlining, etc. But when it came to saying, okay, what to do with our money, one, it wasn't taught to us. And so as a result, we suffer from generational trauma, and it's just passed down, and you look up and people are comfortable being on this rat race, right? This hamster on the wheel, where it's like, the hardest thing to do is getting off, right? People just say, oh, I'll keep paying the minimum balance. I don't want to look at my credit. And the reality is you just got to be very intentional, because you can stop. You're right. You can't stop living paycheck to paycheck, right? I want to say over 2/3 of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's alarming to me, right? And so when you look at that, literally over 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And that being said, that should be alarming. However, once again, people are comfortable not knowing. And what I want to say is, like, it's not rocket science. There's a true blueprint to attaining wealth, right? We spend money, right? As a demographic of people, we spend money alarmingly that outpaces what we make up in the population. So once again, if black people make up 14% of the population, well, guess what? We should be spending 14% of this product group. But instead, we spending money that we don't have, and we spending it at an alarming pace because maybe we're trying to appeal, try to, look like we got money, right? We're trying to please people that we don't like, right? just to have a good picture on Instagram. And so I one of the things is that I really want to focus on is, like, look, just because you don't come from money, right? In order to break that generational trauma, generational wealth, got to start with you. And so we just got to be intentional, because it's not taught to us, but we so smart at everything we do. We the first to do everything, but when it comes to investing, we the last.
Wow. That's real.
That is nuts.
That's real. I want to ask you this, and I think it may be, correct me if I'm wrong, similar to what you did on Netflix. So what would you say to a young person that finally got that first full-time job, they're making a salary, what would be the first thing you would advise them to do financially, whether that's investing? What would you advise them to do?
I would tell them, first thing first, budget. You can't manage $50,000 if you can't manage 500, and you can't manage 5 million if you can't manage 50,000. So like you say, when people get money, what I genuinely say, the easiest thing is to get the money. The hardest thing is to keep it, right? So you got to budget. You got to know your inflows and outflows to ensure that you are not living beyond your means, right?
Yeah.
The name of the game, if you don't know what you're doing, spend less than what you make, right? And the next thing I would tell that person is start preparing for retiring day one, right? I think the average black person is not prepared for retiring. That's why you see many of our relatives continuing to work well into their 60s, 70s, or 80s for that matter. And the goal is, if you start paying your future self, right? Like, as a society, we taught to pay bills till we die, right? Oh, we pay our light bill, our phone bill, we pay Netflix, Amazon, whatever it is, we paying bills until we die, but we never taught to pay ourselves. And so if we start paying ourselves first, right? Pay yourself before you pay your rent and mortgage. Not saying don't pay that, but what I'm saying is once you budget, you know, okay, this is $50 for my future self. Because we're gonna spend $50. That's $50 for 2 drinks in the club. It costs $200 to get your hair done for ladies, and not shit.
We close enough to.
I was about to
guys,
say,
Right.
barbers is now $100. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we know how to make money, but what we don't know how to do is save and invest the money. And so that's what I'm saying. So budget first, start preparing for your future self, and start paying yourself first.
Okay.
What are some products, without giving like specific names, but like the product itself, that you think people should invest in? Because, you know, for a minute, everybody was like, ooh, don't do 401ks. You know, there was a crash and ooh. But now, do people get CDs? Should they put their money in an IRA? Should they put their money in a 401k? What are some of the products that you would suggest?
I love that. So when it comes to the actual products to put your money in, let me just say it like this. Due to something called inflation, and we all know it, the rise in price of goods over time, the reason why $1 can no longer buy you 4 bags of chips, it buys you 1 bag and a 10-cent bag to put it in. That's called inflation. And so by purely leaving your money in your savings account that pays 0.33%, literally for every $100 you get 33 cents, you want to say, okay, I need to find a way to allow my money at a bare minimum to outpace inflation. Because inflation in a normal year is 2 to 3%. Meaning if I have $100 today, next year it's only worth $98. So literally that same $100, the following year is only worth $98 if you're not doing anything with it by investing. And so now when you say, where should you put your money, right? You can do it in a few ways, right? High yield savings accounts at a bare minimum. If you like, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, a high yield savings account is going to pay you maybe 5% right now, right? Just literally Google high yield savings account. That's 5% annually at a minimum, right? Now, outside of that, I love what you were saying, 401ks or IRAs to, you know, the people. At the end of the day, what you're doing is you're trying to be intentional about retiring, right? The goal is to retire rich. It's not to work as long. And so at that moment, right, a 401k is to the people that actually have, you know, a corporate job or something where your job is actually giving you retirement benefits. What I say to that person is, your job, if your employer gives you anything called an employer match, where they're willing to match you up to 3 to 6% or whatever it is, max out the match. Max out the match. That was a tongue twister, right? And then outside of that, I love a Roth IRA, because the one unknown is what the tax rate is going to be when you retire, right? At 59.5, when you're able to take your money out of your 401k, we don't really know what the tax rate will be. You will be taxed on that money. However, with a Roth IRA, you're technically investing money that has already been taxed. So therefore, you take it out when you're 59.5. One, it's no taxes because it's technically already been taxed. But 2, say, you know, you started at 20 and now you have 40 and you're like, man, I need a little money. I want to buy some real estate. Well, guess what?
Right.
You can take out your contributions with no penalty. You can't take out money in your 401k or there will be a penalty, right? So Roth, you could do that. But outside of that, one, we need life insurance, right? I think, you know, us as a community, I see it too often, GoFundMe's, right? And I always, it hurts me because, right, we're not taught this, right? It hurts me because for some reason, we always play the dozens, this, that, and that. You old silver spoon fed, you know what I mean, yada, yada. But like, it is dope as heck. I don't know if I can curse. It's dope as heck to actually be a trust fund kid. Like, nothing wrong with that. That just means your grandparents and parents was intentional about
set you up.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So being a trust fund kid is one, a cheat code, right? So having life insurance and then putting it like in a trust, that's the cheat code to one, right? Having estate planning is the cheat code to one, making sure your kids get all the money that you want them to get. So, right, like if I got a life insurance policy, but I ain't necessarily got no will and no estate plan, well, you know, the government gonna come in and take a third of it because they gotta do probate, right? So obviously life insurance and, you know, estate planning, and also get your kids accounts, right? Like
Yeah.
I got accounts where I don't even want people to give my kids toys or clothes because if one, they gonna outgrow them, and two, they gonna stop playing with them, and I'm tired of stepping on them. You know what I mean? So instead, I want them to give them investments, right? I love teaching my kids. My daughter, she be on YouTube every day. So guess what? She got to own the company that owns YouTube, which is Google, right? If she wear Nikes, well, we got to own Nike, right? If you got an iPhone, and everybody in here right now got an iPhone, we saw Beyonce was on our phone when we first started. She wasn't paying attention.
Talk about it.
You know what I'm saying? She ain't trying to talk to Raw.
Talk about it.
But we
That's
gotta
what I
own,
got. Yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
need you. I told you earlier, I need you.
But we gotta own Apple stock, and so at the end of the day, these different accounts, and also just for your own self, right? For your day to day, not thinking about retirement, a normal brokerage account, and those are the accounts we need.
Okay.
Man, you've been dropping gems, and you have a summit coming up.
Woo,
when people will be able to learn this and more. Please talk to us about that.
Yeah, man, the summit is something that I found to be fulfilling, because what I'm doing is bringing a panel of experts, of GOATs that I look at as my personal friends. All these people are local in Chicago, people that you may not have heard of, but people that are doing big things, people that are big private wealth managers that only work with high net worth people that are managing hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Top CEOs that are going to give you the blueprint of how to be a great entrepreneur, how to leverage relationships, and how to actually take a business and scale it. We're talking about people that are going to literally tell us how to get into real estate, people who got shows on HGTV, and top performing realtors, and people that are going to teach us how to manage our money like the 1%, how to retire rich, and how to make sure our kids never have to have student loans, never have to, because one thing I realized when I graduated from college, I saw people who had a different level of freedom because they came from money, and money was never an issue. I remember coming out of college, I'm like, I gotta work because I got student loans, whereas some people were like, oh, I'm gonna go travel and backpack in Europe or something. Like, the level of freedom is different when you're financially free. So starting investing for your kids, knowing the right accounts, right? And so once again, the Maconomics Wealth Summit is July 9th. All you got to do is send me a text message to 773-232-2577. Once again, I'm going to say that again. Get your phones ready. That's 773
Now you can be on your phone.
2577, and just text me Summit. That way that you could get ticket information and other promo codes, etc. And make sure you tune in, man. It's at the Den Theater. It's on the north side, 1331 North Milwaukee. And I also want to give a special shout out to my sponsors, right? Northwestern Mutual. Shout out my guy Jeremiah Williams, who has a practice there, and GCM Grosvenor.
Yeah. So who are some of the people that will be at the summit, though? Brokers, like what is it that they do?
Got you. So we got one of my guys who actually plays for the Bears, who's a phenomenal investor that literally NFLPA actually has them come in and talk to the new rookies coming in, right? He's one of those type of people, right? We got the Les Coneys of the world. That's a big honcho, been in the industry for 40 years. You got Jory Luster, CEO of Luster Products. You know what I'm saying? We got my dog Rob Rumley, who's at William Blair, who manages hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Who's gonna teach you, right? We got my dog Ryan Smith, who is at a life insurance company, right? Used to literally top VC shop, used to work with Magic Johnson, and now he's in part of a company that bought the life insurance company, right? Oh, wow. My girl Chris Patterson, shout out one of the GOATs too, right? Chris Patterson, as well as Rashana Scott. We just bring in a lot of dope people that I feel as though are literally going to help revolutionize the conversation about money, right? Because all these people have, once again, the greatest teacher isn't experience, right? Everybody say that like, oh, you don't know the owl is hot or the iron is hot until you touch it. We get that, right? But the greatest teacher to me is exposure. And so all these people that I'm bringing have been exposed to something that is on another level, and now they get to give us all those secrets that they've attained along the way.
Yeah, man, I want to say congrats on everything you've done. I love that you are bringing this back to our community. You look like us, you talk like us, and we literally learn from you. Every time Ross comes in, whether it's on this podcast, the morning show, when I watch the videos you do with your daughter and now your son on IG, I'm like, okay, I just learned something really quick like that. So I say thank you and congrats.
Man, thank you
everything
so much, bro.
You've
I appreciate
done,
you.
But for people who want to follow you, please give that all out.
Absolutely, man. You can follow me on all social platforms. That's at I'm Ross Mack. the letter I, the letter M, ROSSMAC. I'm Ross Mack, and you could also shoot me a text, man, 773-232-2577.
Maconomics.
You better know.
I love that. That's so
You see what you
clever.
did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there.
I gotta do something with Ryan.
Nothing
Ryan.
with Ryan. The Den Theater, North Side on
Yeah.
Milwaukee, 1300 block North Milwaukee. It's going to be a great time, and I
Yeah.
might have to slide on you too, man. Because seriously,
you might have to.
you're
I need you in the
never-
building.
You need a
you're never too
sign.
educated to know how to deal with finances, and that is a common denominator amongst all of us. We have to make money, we have to save money, we have to invest, and we have to grow. It doesn't matter what you do for an occupation, whether you're a radio
Absolutely.
personality or you work in retail,
Facts.
it doesn't matter. So thank you, man. I learned a lot just on this podcast, and I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not going to the mall today.
There we go.
I'm not going.
Yo, you do need to
I'm
talk
going
to her.
to invest
Yo, wait,
in
time
me.
out.
Okay.
You really do need to
Okay,
talk to
so
her.
instead of
Wait,
paying money
time
for those
out.
shoes,
Wait.
I'm paying money to me.
Hold on, that's a whole other
To me.
podcast.
And we're gonna
you
end it
really
on that
need
note.
to talk to her about
I heard you
We're
do
gonna-
retail therapy almost every other day.
On that note,
Yo.
we're gonna end this podcast.
You so lucky.
Hey, Ryan.
I'm sorry. All right. Follow him, guys, at Ryan
We're gonna
Immediately.
exchange
At
numbers
We'll
after
Just
this.
Agree to Disagree. Where can they follow you?
At Beyonce Fox everywhere.
Yep. We're about to have this conversation. We'll see you guys later.